Hi guys, it's your friendly neighborhood headbanger Terry here, and it's been a little bit since I've made a video. According to my last video date, it's been about 3 weeks. So, um, I wanted to come on here and just do kind of a structured ramble, which seems like an oxymoron, but if I'm going to just talk about a subject, I need to have a little bit of an outline or I will rabbit trail all over the place. Now, I need to let you know that as I started filming this, I currently have two cats in here with me. I have our baby, our 5-month-old kitten Zoe, who is currently just going around and trying to sniff things, and I'm just trying to put things out of her way like I just did with an open bottle of water so that she doesn't cause utter chaos. The other cat that we have in here, we've had her for about 8 months now, and she is a little over 1, and she's not quite as crazy as the 5-month-old, but so if you hear noise, that's probably what's going on. Today is the last day, well, I guess technically tomorrow is, of Mental Health Week. You guys know that I am a big advocate for talking about mental health, and I have not been shy in sharing with you the mental health issues that I've had. I have only been able to do that really in about the past 10 years or so. And I have found that people have been really accepting when I want to talk about it. People have been open to hearing about it. They haven't been judgmental. I think we've come a long way in talking about mental health. You may remember me telling you that when I was in the hospital for my eating disorder, that my parents did not feel comfortable in telling anyone in their church. I don't know if they told any of their friends. I don't even know if they told other family members. I don't think they probably did. Just because it was hard to say to someone back then, I have a loved one in a mental hospital, because people had such a preconceived notion of what that was, thanks to movies like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And my experience was nothing like that, by the way, in case you haven't heard about my experience, and I did talk about it a little bit. But today, the first thing I want to do is I want to give you some statistics. These are from the National Institute of Mental Health. Now, I gave you statistics before about eating disorders, because I did talk about eating disorders as a mental health issue. But these are just going to be more general statistics about people who are dealing with mental health issues in general. So I put my really smart girl glasses on. Oh my goodness, look at me. 50 IQ points added right here. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, mental health statistics according to the National Institute for Mental Health, otherwise known as NIMH. If you want to go and look them up, they are on the web. They've got a lot of good information there if you are curious about more when we're done here. Okay. They divide mental health issues into AMI, all mental health issues, or all mental illnesses, and then a subset of that is SMI, severe mental illness. And these are mental illnesses that impair someone from living a productive life. Now, interestingly enough, what isn't included in severe mental illnesses is things like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and that type thing. They didn't include those. What they're saying when they say severe mental illness is a depression or an anxiety or OCD or something like that is to the point where you cannot live your life as you normally would. Your life is impaired in some way. So that's what they mean when they mean severe. They don't mean hardcore mental illnesses that often require hospitalization. All right, so according to the NIMH, 21.6 of the 51.5 million adults in America, 20.6, no, I'm sorry, 50, that would be 51.5 million adults, have a mental illness. In other words, 1 in 5 people is dealing with some sort of mental illness. So that doesn't mean it's like a hardcore mental illness. It doesn't mean that all of them are suicidal, all of them are so anxious that they can't leave their home. It doesn't mean that. It means that they are dealing with some form of mental illness. So if you know 5 people, there is a really good chance that one of them is dealing with a mental illness. It could even be you. So there you are. About 25.5% of this 20.6% is female. 16.3% are males. Now I realize that doesn't total to 100%, and I don't know what the rest of those people are. I don't know if they didn't put what they were, male or female. I don't know if they don't identify as male or female, maybe non-binary. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. It didn't add up to 100%. Anyway, suffice to say that there are more females that suffer from mental illnesses than males, at least those that report it. And that is the thing. We are having to rely, with these statistics, we're having to rely on people that took a survey, that reported in, that gave their demographics information. So there are, I am sure, way more, and I would say 20% is underreported. So there you go. All right. So of the adults that have a mental illness, ages 18 to 25 make up 29.4% of the adults that have a mental illness. Ages 26 to 50 make up 25%, and ages 50 plus make up 14.1%. So what we're hearing is that in late adolescence, early adulthood is when a lot of people are being diagnosed and reporting mental illnesses. And a lot of these people, this 25% of 26 to 50 year olds and this 14.1% of 50 plus year olds, doesn't mean they didn't have one before that. What it probably means is they just didn't get diagnosed before that. But yeah, it is coming, I think we're coming to the realization that mental health issues start at a much younger age than we thought they did. It's very interesting that according to the demographics here, the highest percentage of people that have a mental illness are of 2 or more races. So that's interesting, 31.7%. 22%, the next highest ethnic group, is whites or non-Hispanics. And the lowest group of people that report to having a mental illness are Asians. Now, I don't know that that necessarily means that Asians don't struggle with mental health issues that much less. I do know, studying for my master's and learning about cultural diversity in counseling, that sometimes Asian people of Asian descent are not as open to talking about their issues. And so it could be that that's underreported. I don't know. So 44% of adults with a mental illness received mental services. More females than males, at about the same percentage-wise as more females reporting than males. So also more females receiving services makes sense. The lower the age, this is super important, the lower the age, the less likely for a person to receive mental health services. That's directly inverse to what we just learned about more younger people are being diagnosed or reporting issues with mental illness. So we have the larger group is 18 to 25, and yet the lower the age, the less services they're receiving. That's a problem. And that's a problem that's, if we don't do something about that, that chasm is just going to get wider and wider. So we need to think about that. People don't think that kids and young adults have issues. They're like, you've got your whole life ahead of you. Go. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't necessarily mean that that person has the tools to deal with the mental crisis that they're dealing with. They might really seriously need some help. Okay, Severe mental illnesses. We're talking now about major depressive disorder. We're talking about social anxiety to the point of being frozen inside your home. We're talking about debilitating panic disorder. We're talking about debilitating OCD. So these are severe mental illnesses that actually impact your quality of life. And there are about 13.1 million adults that deal with a severe mental illness. That is 5.2% of the population. Young adults 18 to 25, yet again, make up the largest percentage of people that have a severe mental illness. They make up 8.6%. 26 to 49-year-olds make up 6.8%, and 50 plus make up 2.9%. Here again, not saying that they didn't have issues the entire time before that, just saying this is when they get diagnosed or when they receive services. Yet again, people who are of two or more races, of a mixed ethnicity, tend to have a higher incidence of severe mental illness. So the lowest group to report severe mental illness are Pacific Islanders. So, interesting. All right, let's see. In the last year, 65.5% of people with a severe mental illness receive mental health services. That's kind of encouraging. That's about 2/3. We need that to be higher, though. 70% of those were females and 56.5% were males. So there you go. Now, let's talk about adolescence, because this is something that is near and dear to my heart since my issue started when I was an adolescent. Adolescents with any mental illness, meaning, any severe anything. Let's see. I'm trying to read my writing. Don't you love it when you can't read your writing? There are an estimated 49.5% of teens that have any mental illness. And of those, 22% had a severe mental illness. Wow. Wow, that's insane. We've got to do better with our adolescents, guys. We've got to do better with our kids, because this is the kind of thing that if you give coping skills and treatment early on, life can be so much better for so much longer period of time for people. I did not get my true bipolar diagnosis until last year. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. And so I didn't start receiving medication that I probably had needed up to this point until then. I had medication for depression, which was helping, but I didn't have anything for the mania. So it's important to get a correct diagnosis, and the sooner the better, so your quality of life can be longer. It can be better longer, rather. So now we're going to talk about just a few of the types of common disorders that people deal with. One common one is anxiety disorder. Not necessarily the paralyzing kind, but about 20% of adults are going to deal with an anxiety disorder at some point in their life. It may not be debilitating, but it may be an acute thing where they deal with it for a while. Maybe they got a new job position. Maybe they're newly divorced. There's been a big change in their life and they're nervous about it. So serious anxiety disorder, which social anxiety disorder, any of those things that are truly debilitating, there are 22.8% of that 19.1% that have anxiety disorder suffer a serious anxiety disorder. The vast majority of anxiety disorders are pretty mild. And cognitive behavioral therapy and sometimes medication can help with that. But, of course, there are more severe. Let's see. Let's talk about depressive disorder. There are different levels of depression. There is a mild situational depression that you might deal with when you suffer a loss of a pet, loss of a loved one, loss of a job, moving, losing your identity in the place where you lived. So there are those that they can be serious, but they're often acute. They're not chronic. There is a chronic depression, kind of a low-level chronic depression that generally does need treatment. And then you have major depressive disorder, where there are chronic issues with depression that sometimes leaves you unable to get out of bed, might lead to self-harm thoughts or self-harm attempts. This is major depressive disorder. I deal with major depressive disorder, and I will tell you that it is sometimes all-consuming. It is important to be able to talk to someone, important to be able to reach out to not only professionals, but have the support of the people around you, to talk to your doctor or your psychiatrist and make sure that your medication, if you need medication, is at the right level. The same is true with anxiety. Anxiety can be debilitating, as we just said, and there might be medication that you need for that. Other mental disorders that are well known and not necessarily terribly prevalent, but eating disorders actually only makes up about 2% of mental disorders. But, well, I shouldn't say that. 2% of the population deals with eating disorders, but they are the most casualty-ridden of the mental illnesses. There are more deaths from eating disorders, either through just starving themselves to death and having a physical issue happen, usually with the heart, or just suicide. They are often so paranoid in their search for perfection that they just don't see any other way out. They don't see a way from their illness, and they don't see a way to achieve that perfection, and that can be overwhelming, and I can tell you that from experience. So now you have some statistics about mental illnesses, but that's real, and I'm glad you have those, because that tells you how prevalent the issue is and that it's out there and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed with younger people especially, because that's where the prevalence is being seen. And that's just going to continue. That's not going to magically get better, and we need to open up our mental health services to more people, make it available to more people, so that people who need them have access to them just as freely as you would have access going to your doctor for a sinus infection. It needs to be that accessible, and I just don't think we're at that point right now, but we need to be. I want to talk to you as the friend of someone who is dealing with a mental disorder. And I know that puts people in a weird place, because you think to yourself, I'm not a counselor, I don't know what to say to this person, I don't know how to help this person, and oh my gosh, what if they reach out to me? Well, there's a good chance that they won't reach out to you. I didn't reach out to anybody. I didn't want anyone to know what I was doing. I tried to keep it, under wraps. But what people did do that was helpful to me was they just made themselves available to me. They checked on me. They said, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? And I would always say fine. I mean, I would have said fine if I was, on my last breath, because that's what a lot of people with mental disorders do. They don't want anyone to know that the mental disorder exists, and until of course it just gets to the point where everyone can realize something is wrong. But if they are dealing with it and managing to hide it pretty well so far, then they'll do anything to keep that secret. So they're not probably going to say, you know what, I'm just not doing very well. There are signs that you can look for. If people keep to themselves, they don't go out and do anything socially, they're not sleeping, they're not eating, or they're always sleeping and they're always eating. You can look for those. You can look for people that don't want to leave their house, that don't want to be in large crowds. people who are very, very intent on things being a certain way every time, people who are very, and I don't want to say everyone that cleans their house or worries about germs is dealing with OCD, but people who do it to a point where you can see that it's an obsession. Um, you know, confronting these people, it's probably not going to go that well, and it's not like they don't know that something's wrong. I've met very few people um, who, barring being psychotic, they knew there was something going on. I knew it was not normal to eat large amounts of food and go throw it up, or just not eat all day, or just eat everything, just throw up everything you ate that day, whether it was a binge or not. I knew that wasn't normal, but it was working for me to keep my weight down, and I thought that it was working to keep other things in my life the way they needed to be. And I thought, if I keep doing this, everything's gonna go okay. But no one needed to tell me that there was anything wrong with me. I knew that. That's not normal for people to throw up everything they eat. I knew that. So confronting them with "there's something wrong with you" is probably not the way to start the conversation. What you could say was, I just want you to know that I'm here to talk to you anytime that you need to talk. There's no judgment here. Just if you just need to talk about something, I'm here. We'll go get a coffee and we'll sit and we'll talk. Now, the terrifying thing might be that one of these people might take you up on it. And you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I know there's something going on with, we'll just call her Mary. I know there's something going on with Mary. Mary I don't see her out a lot. She's lost weight. She doesn't look like she's sleeping well. I offered her to go out for coffee, and now she said yes. And what are we going to talk about? And what if she tells me that there's something wrong? And what am I going to say? The best thing that you can do for someone who is dealing with any kind of mental issue, if they have made it to the point where they will reach out to you, which is huge, is to listen. You're right. You're not a counselor. Oh, unless you are. But you can do a world of good by just listening in a non-judgmental fashion. And by that, you don't say stupid things like, you just need to cheer up, or, oh, if you just get out more, look at how blessed your life is. You've got a house, you've got food, No, they know all that. That's not what they want to hear. What they want to hear from you is, okay, I get that that's hard for you. Tell me more. Tell me more about what's been going on with you. You don't have to fix them. You're not supposed to fix them. That's not your job. But you can listen. And while you're listening, if you are concerned about what you hear, you can encourage them to reach out to someone, to reach out to a counselor, to reach out to a clergy member who, if they are worth their salt, will refer them to a counselor. Really have an issue with pastors who don't have a licensed a degree in counseling and a license to do hardcore counseling with people with major issues. It's one thing to talk about spiritual issues that they're dealing with. It's another thing when you have a suicidal person dealing with major depressive disorder. That's not again, unless he is a licensed counselor, that's over your pastor's pay grade. He really, that needs to be referred to somebody else. And that gets me to another thing, which is the church. So let me finish by saying that if a friend says something to you that's concerning, then please encourage them to go and get help, and tell them that you will be with them through the journey, because that might be the thing that allows them to go and get help. One of the things that allowed me to go and get help, besides the fact that I was just sent there, was the fact that I knew that my roommate, my college roommate, who is one of the most wonderful people I have ever known, I knew that my college roommate would be beside me. She came and visited me when I was in the hospital. I knew that she would be my friend. She'd be there for me when I got out. And she actually wasn't my roommate at that point. I had a different roommate who also actually was there for me. She got our room ready in the dorm and had it all fixed up and just gorgeous before it was time for us to move in. But I had these friends that I knew were with me on the journey. They knew what the deal was. They knew what I was struggling with. Nobody had been judgmental. Nobody had said, "Ew, gross, you throw your food up? What's that about?" Nobody had said those things. And those are the things that no matter how shocking what your friend tells you is, you have got to rein it in and not be judgmental with them, because that could be the thing that turns them off and has them running with their tails between their legs and not talking to anybody ever again. Your goal is not to counsel them or fix them. Your goal is to get them to help, to tell them that you will stand beside them as they go get help. Sometimes I think people are afraid to talk to people with mental illnesses because they think that they have to be the fixer. They think that they have to, that's not your job. You're not trained in that. That's not your job. Your job is to be supportive and non-judgmental. So if you have a friend who's dealing with a mental illness, don't be afraid to call on them and say, "Hey, how are you doing? Just wanted to see what was up. Do you need anything? Can I do anything for you?" And maybe they want to talk to you about how their therapy's going, and you can listen while they talk about it. And you can say, it's okay to say, "I don't know everything about what you're going through, but I want to listen if you want to talk. And I will try to be as, I'm going to try to understand it as much as I can." So just do that for your friend who's dealing with a mental illness. Listen, be non-judgmental, do not be confrontational. And don't be the one that sits them down and has like some sort of crazy intervention with them, just you and them. Don't do that. They're going to run screaming. My last thing I want to talk about is the church. The church is getting way better. Ah, there's my kitty. There she is. Hi, Zoe. The church is getting so much better about dealing with mental health issues. There was a time when it was just, if you would just pray harder, and apparently you've sinned in some way, you just need to repent of your sin, and the Lord will, come back to you and be faithful to you, and it'll all be fine. And that is just BS. I so want to say the actual word, but I feel like when I'm talking about the church, I can't use the full term for BS. I know. But it is complete and utter BS. People have mental illnesses for a number of reasons. A huge majority of them are organic. There are biological, actual neural reasons of why people have mental illnesses, children and adults. Some of it is exacerbated by social issues, the way they've grown up, the home that they've grown up in, the culture that they've been surrounded by. It just depends. The bio cultural thing is just huge. You got the nature and the nurture, and really with mental illnesses, the nature is there, and then the nurture often decides whether or not it's going to be an issue. So, or really not whether it's going to be an issue, but how much of an issue it's going to be. Have they learned coping skills? Have they grown up in a supportive network where they could talk about these things? Have they grown up in a supportive network that says to them, "Hey, we need to go to this person and talk to this person because this person is a professional, they can help you"? If they haven't grown up in that environment, then there's not going to be any coping skills or correction for the already biological, organic issue that's happening. So the church in the past has been really bad about just saying that you need to confess that you've fallen away from God. You need to confess whatever sin. You need to repent, and you need to pray, and then the Lord will come and heal you from these things. Could the Lord come heal you from these things? Sure, absolutely. But let's not let's not blame the victim here. We always say, don't blame the victim. Don't blame the victim. We particularly say it in cases of, say, sexual assault. It's also true with someone who is dealing with a mental illness. Don't blame the person with the mental illness for the mental illness. I promise you, if they could have their druthers, they would not have a mental illness. I know I wouldn't. I would not have major depressive disorder. I wouldn't have bipolar 2. I wouldn't have an eating disorder. I wouldn't have any of these things. And I would be, I would feel so much lighter for it. So yeah, it's almost as if you have said that they brought it on themselves in some way. and that's just not a good thing to say to someone with eating disorder or any mental disorder, because they already feel guilt and shame. And that's just adding to it. We as Christians, even if you're not a practicing Christian, but certainly as Christians, we are told to love God and love our fellow man as we would love ourselves. Well, I don't think you'd love yourself in a way that you would make yourself feel horrible. So if you wouldn't do something to yourself to make yourself feel horrible, don't do it to someone who's dealing with a mental illness, because they are already have this weight on them, and they are tired, and they are frustrated, and they already feel a sense of shame and isolation. And if you tell them that the one thing that they might be willing to put their hope in, the love of God, if you tell them that that God is actually punishing them with their mental illness because they didn't do something well enough, well, you can just kiss that person goodbye. They don't want any part of your God, and they don't want any part of you. And I would not blame them for that. I am thankful again to the person that became my roommate, of showing me a Christian attitude of acceptance and non-judgment and love, and just saying, you're sick. You're sick. It's like the flu, but it's in your head. It's an illness. It's not a failing. It's an illness. Say it with me, kids. It's not a failing. It's an illness. It needs to be treated. Doesn't make anybody lesser. Doesn't make anybody, it doesn't mean they don't fit in. It doesn't mean they're not part of society. It means they have an illness. They need to be treated, and they need to be included. All right, guys, this was kind of all over the place, and I get that. When I talk about mental health, mental illness, and how we treat it in this country, I get so excited in both a good and bad way, and I have so much that I feel like I need to say that there's so much in my head that my mouth can't just okay, I think you get the idea. So I know that I said that I was going to be doing an ASMR video, an ASMR spelling test. I have not forgotten that. I'm working on the words for that because I want to make sure that those words are good trigger words, like coconut. I want to have good trigger words, soft-spoken, that you like to hear. All right, guys, I hope you're doing well. I hope that things are going well in your neck of the woods. COVID cases are down in my neck of the woods, and we're very happy about that. So I hope that's happening where you are too. And I love you guys, and I hope that you take care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.